Namaste, everyone. Namaste, all the students who have joined today Vladimirji's lecture. And I welcome Vladimirji for Auro University, which you have visited today. Thank you for coming. Let me start with the introduction a little bit so that you people get idea that we are at SALC, working for. I mean, it is a lecture series for the celebration of Sri Aurobindo's birthday. The lecture series is based on the main works of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, where we will understand the deep meaning behind the human quest for an understanding of oneself and purpose of self-development and self-expression. We at Auro University offer a course on Indian culture and its foundational values in the context of the evolution of Indian knowledge system. A brief idea about the course is that it lays the foundation of integral knowledge and develop a critical capacity to evaluate all claims to knowledge and its ancillaries, for example, faith, belief, ignorance, including one's own. It is expected that learners, whosoever have joined, that they come into the position to aware of knowledge and its operation and critically consider and reason main concepts and categories of knowledge, nature, means and objectives of knowledge, strength and limitations of various domain of knowledge from comparative perspectives as well as particularly Indian and Western perspective. So today we have Dr. Vladimirji, who is a scholar and instructor of Sanskrit and Vedantic studies. He is a facilitator at University of Human Unity project at Auroville in his Psychology Institute of Pondicherry, International Center of Integral Studies in New Delhi, and Sakar in Pondicherry. I welcome Vladimirji, and I don't want to discuss much, detail because your time is very important for us. And I hope all the students as well as the participants, this discussion with Vladimirji help us in understanding our knowledge system in new light in present context. So please ask questions. You raise the question and put it in Q&A box, and we will, forward all the question to Vladimirji. Vladimirji, over to you, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Kiranji. Good evening, everyone. It's 5:30 in the morning in the US, where I'm connected to, where I'm speaking from. It's early morning, actually, to speak about these great subjects, especially the knowledge system and the development of Indian knowledge system. And of course, I do not see you. Unfortunately, it would be nice to see your faces, to see your reactions, to hear your voices. You're all kind of separate behind the wall, and I will have to speak to you in kind of hoping that you are listening or reacting in some way. But I encourage you to raise your hand, to ask your questions, and even to interrupt if it would be possible, and the flow, and to clarify things. Because without clarification, it is again a lecture. And lectures, we know, they do not really work. So the development of Indian knowledge system is unique in a way. And here I will say a few words that it belongs to several developmental paradigms, to several structures of consciousness because of its lifespan. It has a very long, starting from 6000 BC onwards, life. It starts from the Vedic vision of the universal consciousness and how the faculties of universal consciousness influence our life and how they change our life, how we can invoke those faculties, or those gods as we know them. They are really faculties of consciousness. And engage them in our life, everyday life, for the welfare of all. That was the tradition before, the grand Vedic tradition, where the gods or universal powers of consciousness were brought down by our invocation for the welfare of the whole planet, all creatures, all beings, not only human beings, but also of nature, of animal beings, of stars and planets. And so, and then that tradition slowly started to become more and more individualized. And so we arrive at what we know as Upanishadic tradition, where the faculties of consciousness, those very powers of consciousness, are already seen in the individual framework, where individual is possessing these seeing, hearing, speaking, thinking. So this shift from the universal Vedic vision towards the more individualized usage of the faculties mm, becomes inevitable, so to say, as we are going down the stream towards the uh, Kali Yuga's time. Yes, in the Kali Yuga we have already totally individualized view on existence, and it's quite significant that in the Gita, Shri Krishna does this. You know that Kali Yuga, according to Indian system, starts with Kurukshetra, where Shri Krishna finally did what he had to do, as he says. And Arjuna complains about mixing of varnas, jatis. So the mixing of jatis was necessary for one particular reason, to create an individual perception. As Sri Krishna says, now everyone in his heart will find me the supreme. So Arjuna complains, saying that how would we know who is who? If in the family of Brahmins somebody is born who is not Brahmin, we would not know. So, but he says it doesn't matter now. It doesn't matter the outer structure, the conventional structure is collapsing, but individual structure is emerging. So individual approach to knowledge is emerging. All these faculties are become more and more individualized. And that is the shift from the Vedic, which is universal view, towards what we know today as individualistic age. As Sri Aurobindo speaks about this age, we are in the individualistic age, moving towards subjective age. It will be even more individualized. We will become subjective in our views on things, which is already happening. You can see it clearly. The world becomes more and more individual oriented, and more subjective views are becoming powerful. Whatever they are, they may be very ignorant. Most of the time they are totally ignorant, but still we are valuing them for some reason. We do not know why subjective views we value nowadays so much. But that is because there is a shift happening, constant kind of deepening of individual perception is taking place, which will lead us finally that every individual has to discover his own truth, his own connection to the Supreme. And it will lead us to the spiritual age, as Sri Aurobindo says. So this is just a general picture uh, to have a overview how it happened from the Satya Yuga, where, you know, the symbolic age, where all the symbols of the whole world was seen as symbols of one divine reality. All the relations were harmonious and beautiful and open to the spiritual presence. Through the typal and conventional age, where the types of behavior and jatis were formed and finally became very conventional, like we have today in India, and finally broke through to the individualist age. That was the purpose of Kurukshetra and destruction of the conventional system for the sake of the individual consciousness taking charge in life. So this is the overview. Now I want to come back to the concrete matters of the faculties of consciousness, how they were seen before Sankhya and after Sankhya. Sankhya is the major philosophical system which is providing mm, the background or the data for every Indian philosophical system. We have Sankhya in yoga, we have Sankhya in other philosophical systems also. So it is implied that Sankhya is something which is providing the whole overview of our faculties, of our indriyas, how they function. And Sankhya is unique in one particular regard, that it is providing for us with the mental structure of consciousness, where the mind dominates and synthesizes the input of indriyas, of our senses. So senses provide the information, and mind is synthesizing that information and focusing these senses on particular actions. So basically, what happens, it is this vision of today of our scientific approach to knowledge is actually Sankhyaik approach to knowledge. We are, how to say, fed by the uh, indriyas, by faculties of consciousness, of seeing, hearing, um, touching, smelling, and tasting. All these inputs of indriyas come in, and there is a mind within which is managing them, synthesizing them, focusing them on different object of sense. So as Yajnavalkya in Brihadaranyaka would say, it is not by the eye that you see, it is by the mind that one sees. It's not by the ear that one hears, it's by the mind one hears. So whatever mind chooses, we hear. Whatever mind doesn't choose, we don't hear. We kind of leave it. Mm. And the same with the eye, the same with the mind. Whatever mind is choosing, we are thinking, and not whatever we are thinking. Yes. So in a way, this was the beginning of the mental structure in the terms of Jean Gebser. There was such a philosopher, Jean Gebser, who wrote the Ever-Present Origin book, uh, about the structures of consciousness. And he says that we are in this mental, rational structure where mind dominates all inputs of other faculties of consciousness. That's why we call it mental structure. We are mental beings. We live in the mental world. We view everything through the prism of the mental capacity, of rational capacity. We view ourselves as objective beings nowadays. But it wasn't always the same structure before. It was very different before. It was, according to Gebser, mythical structure. And before even there was a magic structure. And from the beginning of time, there was an archaic structure. And if we look at this developmental paradigm, we can see that the Vedas represent the beginning of this archaic integral structure, yes, which later was spelled out in terms of conventions and rituals, and the life of man was totally ritualized in the period of Brahmanas. Brahmanas are first commentaries on the Vedas. Yeah, but between Samhita period and Brahmana period, there is a huge gap of several thousand years. So Brahmanas trying to catch up with Vedic knowledge and to present it in ritualistic terms, mythological terms, fixing everything to particular dharmas, to particular behavior. They create that what Sri Aurobindo calls typal age, types of our behavior. So then jatis and varnas become distinct and fixed in their kind of character. And then it leads to more and more conventionalizing life till that moment when everything is seen differently. Then the cloth is more important than the being. The the family is more important than the individual who is there in that family. So we are becoming representatives of our own conventional structure. So we are no more there. We are like a puppets of some kind, puppets of representatives of some types and species, rather than the living beings who recognize the truth. And there we have that beautiful story of Satyakama Jabala, which is actually addressing exactly this issue. You know the story of Satyakama Jabala from Chandogya Upanishad, where the boy asks his mother um, uh, about his gotra, because he is 6 years old and he wants to study the Veda. He wants to approach the teacher, asking him teacher to start his brahmacharya period. And for that he needs to know his gotra. He needs to know his father, and he lives only with his mother. And his mother says that she was a servant in many places, and she doesn't know who his father is because she was serving many houses and she got him like this. Um, and her name is Jabala, and his name is Satyakama. Satyakama means the one who wants the truth. Um, so he will be Satyakama Jabala. There is no father, only mother. So he approaches his teacher. And this is going against conventional age. Convention demands Gotra, demands the father, otherwise you cannot be recognized as Brahmin. Your father has to be Brahmin before you can approach even the teacher. So he approaches the teacher. Teacher asks him, "What is your Gotra? Who is your father?" And he says, "I asked my mother the same question, and she told me in her young age she served many houses, and she doesn't know who my father is. Her name is Jabala, my name is Satyakama, so I am Satyakama Jabala. Here I am, as I am." And of course, all the students started to make fun of him. And look at this, outcast coming to learn the Vedas. And teacher tells him, "Come, I will initiate you. You are true Brahmin. You didn't deviate from the truth. You didn't deviate from the truth. And your mother is also true Brahmin. She also didn't deviate from the truth." This is the quality of the Brahmin, to be truthful. So you see the clash between the convention and the truth. So what Sri Krishna wanted by demolishing the system of conventions, he wanted everybody to find the truth in their hearts. And that is the individualist age. Yeah. Okay, I will project something. If you have questions, please be active. Um, since I'm doing this for you, um, I wanted to show a few things today. First of all, the system of Panchakoshas. We already studied it in the Foundations of Indian Culture. It's quite interesting that our physical body is not the only body. There are many bodies behind. There is our vital body, or pranamaya purusha, the body of the emotions, sensations, and feelings, that vital body of life force. Behind that, even bigger body supporting it, there is mental body, manomaya purusha, made of mind. So mind is supportive of the life force. Life force is creative of our physical body. And behind manomaya purusha, there is vijnanamaya purusha, even higher body, body of the supramental force, supramental consciousness, beyond which there is Anandamaya Purusha. And Anandamaya Purusha has within itself the Chaitanya Purusha and Sat Purusha. So basically, we have all these 7 bodies. We stop with Anandamaya Purusha because it is already representing the Sat and Chaitanya Purusha. So you can imagine that all our evolution is going on from the physical to the vital. We became vital beings as animals, so the vitality was revealed, and then the mind was revealed. Human beings are mental beings. Mind, man, mental. It is the same etymology, manas, manomaya purusha, manu. Manu is our major matrix, which creates our minds. Our major characteristic as human beings is mental beings. And what is in the future waiting for us is Vijnanamaya Purusha, the supramental being. We are growing towards that higher self. We are constantly evolving beings. As Sri Aurobindo says, a human being is a transitional being. It didn't arrive at the end of its evolution. So our consciousness is constantly evolving. We can speak about evolution of consciousness. So from the mental consciousness, we are evolving into the supramental Vijnanamaya Purusha. Um, so these are the 5 koshas of Indian system of Taittiriya Upanishad. There is a great Upanishad which belongs to Taittiriya tradition, Shakha. There is Taittiriya Samhita, and then there is Taittiriya Brahmana, and the commentary on Samhita. There is Taittiriya Aranyaka, which is part of Taittiriya Brahmana, and then there is Taittiriya Upanishad, which speaks about these 5 um, Purushas. We call them koshas nowadays because of Tantra, but these are Purushas or Atmans, selves. There are 5 selves within us, of which physical body is the last self, is the surface self, which embodies all the rest. So if you look at the Vedic epistemology, epistemology is the um, do not know the branch of knowledge where we mm, learn how we learn, so to say. Uh, it is something which is helping us to understand the process of learning, how we acquire knowledge. So if you look at this epistemological paradigm from the Vedic times, this is the quotation from Sri Aurobindo's commentary on the Upanishads. It is in the ancient conception of the universe, our material existence is formed from the 5 elemental states of matter. We are all material beings. The ethereal, aerial, fiery, liquid, and solid. These are Pancha Mahabhutani, as you know from Sankhya. So there is ether, there is air, there is fire, water, and finally matter, gross matter. And all of them are manifested from the ether. Ether is, let us say, one-dimensional reality. But once it becomes two-dimensional, then ether clashes with ether. We have a touch. When that touch is again turned onto itself, it creates a heat, a light, it's fire. If you add one more dimension, it becomes liquid. It's like a substance without a form. And then finally, if you add one more dimension to it, it becomes rigid in the form. So to say, the water can be frozen and become a material formation. So this is Adhibhuta, view on our being from the point um, of view of the embodiment, yeah, on manifestation of the body. We call it adhibhuta, concerning elements. Yeah. Bhuta is the element. These are the Pancha Mahabhutani, five great elements: ether, air, fire, water, and matter. So in this material frame, there move non-material powers, manifesting through the mind force and life force that work upon matter, and these are called gods or devas. Everything that has to do with the working of the non-material in us is called adhidaiva, that which pertains to the gods. Now, it's quite interesting that within this material frame, within these pancha mahabhutanis, five major elements, there are moving non-material powers of the vital and mental nature. Um, Somebody was asking Sri Aurobindo about this, that he says that the vital is inherent in matter and the mental is inherent, inbuilt, intrinsic to the vital. And in evolutionary process, the vital force, the force of the prana, is revealing itself. There's life on earth, in plants, in animals, fish, birds, human beings. This is the life force, the living being, now which can replicate itself, um, which can live, develop, grow, and die. So this is a living being. There is a prana involved in it. So there was a question: where is that life force within the atom? When we look at the atom from the kind of microscopic point of view, we will not see any life force which is determining the material creation, or we would not see any mental force there either. And he answers, it is inbuilt within the relations between different particles, between the electron and nuclear. Between the electron and nuclear, there is a particular tension of force. And within that relation, within this force, there is the vital power. The vital power makes this nuclear connect with particular types of electrons, numbers of electrons, creating different elements. And these elements clutch and cluster with other elements by that very force which is inherent, inbuilt in the relations between the particles. So within the relations between the particles, there is the vital force, and within that vital force, there is the mental consciousness, which is slowly in the evolutionary process emerging and becomes obvious to us. Now we are mental beings. We are sitting here using these physical bodies, using computers. We are sitting in front of the computers and discussing these mental issues through the physical body. So the physical body slowly evolved and built all the organs, physical organs, necessary to manifest vital and mental consciousness. This is amazing. So within these material, there are non-material powers of mind force and life force, which are slowly evolving, building the instruments of knowledge, our organs, eyes, ears, brain, tongue, lungs, the whole body is built, which is meant to be used by the mental forces. Now, finally, those mental forces which were inbuilt within the atom can manifest, can come forward. We can speak about abstract issues of consciousness. We can discuss consciousness, sitting in our homes in front of the computers and still communicating with one another over a huge space on earth, I am in US, 6 o'clock in the morning. You are in India, 5 o'clock in the evening. And we are still discussing these abstract issues. This is the miracle of the evolution of consciousness. But behind those forces, and what are these forces? These adhidaiva, this is hearing, seeing, speaking, thinking, feeling, and body consciousness. These are the faculties which we use. We use speech, we use hear. You're listening to my speech, you're imagining, you're seeing within what I'm telling you, you're trying to envision it, you try to think upon it, you focus your mind on it, you are feeling it, it creates a particular sense of feeling in you. These are the devatas. The devatas of the Upanishads are Annam, Pranam, Chakshuh, Shrotram, Mano, Vacham. These are the major faculties of consciousness. And they are all coming from the universal Purusha, from the universal consciousness. They all came down here to manifest the individual frame. It's an amazing, if you think about it, that we all, though we are individuals, we share these universal faculties. We all can see, we all hear, we all can speak, we all think, we think the same thoughts, we speak the same words. And because of that, we can share and we can communicate. But behind those faculties, behind the faculties of seeing, hearing, speaking, thinking, etc., above the non-material powers, containing them, greater than they, is the self or spirit, Atman. And everything that has to do with this highest existence in us is called spiritual, Adhyatma. Now, these are three major epistemological frameworks. Adhibhuta, when the consciousness is turned without, when we look at ourselves as material beings. Then there is adhidaiva, when our consciousness is involved and we are looking how we are functioning, how I'm speaking, thinking, feeling, I'm examining that processes. And then finally, if my faculties are turned within, that I'm looking for the source of my being, where I'm coming from, for my inner core, the innermost being, then I'm turning my faculties within and discover my inner self. So if I show you the whole vision, so Adhyatma is the innermost self, Adhibhuta is the peripheral self, on the periphery, the surface self, the material being, the same as we saw five koshas. So the periphery is Annamaya and the innermost is Anandamaya. So here this Atman is the innermost and Adhibhuta is the outermost. In between, we have something, Adhidaiva, the faculties. They can be turned without, then they look at the world as we look at it today scientifically. We are trying to make sense of what we see outside. Or we can look within, as in the Upanishads it is said, the Rishi who was wise, he closed his eyes and he looked within for himself, not without. So we can redirect our faculties within and look for the inner self, the inner being in us. Right? So either looking without or looking within. By the way, this is the biggest problem of our psychology, of our human psychology, is that we can look either without, and the moment we look without, we forget about the inner being, or we look within. And when we look within, we forget about our outer being. So it is very difficult for us to be both inner and outer, to be active outside and to be perceptive inside. The moment we start being active outside, we disconnect from our inner perception, from the perception of our inner self. And that's why all the methods of yoga were developed in such a way that we have to manage our activity outside, activity in terms of the body, that asanas. Asanas are the states of consciousness of the body where we become totally relaxed and passive and immobile. We become immobile. We sit in a particular asana, we close our eyes, we stop even our breathing, we stop our thinking, and in that process we can slowly redirect our faculties towards our innermost nature and move inside and get the inner perception of ourselves. This is called meditation. Yeah. You have to become totally passive outside, inactive outside, in order to move and to perceive your inner being, to move inside and perceive your inner being. But the moment you start being active outside, that immediately you disconnect from the inner being, you forget that inner perception, and so become active outside. The moment you start moving your hands, feet, speech, talking, you forget about yourself. It's quite interesting. Yeah. So they are not easily complementary states, either active or perceptive. The moment you become perceptive, you become inactive. The moment you become active, you forget, you disconnect from your inner perception. So there was a solution proposed by the Upanishads, how to manage this difficult psychological nature. Um, and they proposed not to disconnect from the surface, but for these very faculties of seeing, hearing, speaking, thinking, to turn within, staying on the surface, to become consciously passive, consciously perceptive, and allow the inner light of Adhyatma to reach out to the surface. So to stay perceptive and active at the same time. But for that purpose, for that aim, you have one has um, to train one's faculties uh, to disconnect from their own self-satisfaction. Our faculties, our indriyas, our senses are constantly looking for their self-satisfaction. Our seeing wants to see beautiful, harmonious things. Our hearing wants to hear, harmony and beautiful music, and our speech wants to speak sweet words. So we are all, our touch wants to feel very nice, comfortable touch, nice temperature in the room, and so on. So we are constantly looking for the comforts. Our taste wants to have nice food. So we are constantly looking for the satisfaction of our senses. And because of that, they are running and they are attaching themselves to the object of sense, and we are being enslaved by the object of sense. We get the desire. I want this food. I want this particular, state of comfort. I want this money and fame and this and that because it will lead me to the satisfaction of senses. So we are determined by this constant search of these very faculties to satisfy themselves totally, absolutely. But in this way, we will never be able to satisfy ourselves because these faculties belong to the Adhyatmic level, to the universal Purusha. and only there they can be totally satisfied. So if we could, and that is the proposal of the Upanishads, turn them within, but not disconnect from the outer life, staying in the outer life, being active in outer life, but renounce their claim for self-satisfaction, and become that they could become consciously passive and perceptive of the inner light, waiting for the inner light to reach to the surface, then we would do yoga. This is what is called yoga. Yoga is the connection of the outer consciousness with the innermost consciousness in us. We will unite ourselves. We will compose ourselves. Our inner being and our outer being will become one, bridged. And this bridge is through the faculties of consciousness. They are the bridge. This yellow circle is the bridge between the innermost and the outermost. There is no other way to bridge the inner being to the outer. Only through them, through these very faculties. So if I show you the picture of the more modern picture of the same on the same topic, so you can see that the true being and self-knowledge, or Purusha, is our innermost nature. Then we have an inner nature in between, that is our faculties, Adhidaiva, and then we come to the surface nature and behavior finally, where we judging ourselves by our behaviorism. The more complex picture of these things is here. We can see that we have our inner selves, our inner mind, Manomaya Purusha, our inner vital self, Pranamaya Purusha, and our finally physical self, which is also universal, or in this case, it is individually built from the universal material self, Annamaya Purusha. And we have our surface self, which we have our outer mind, our surface mind, outer vital, our surface feelings and emotions and sensations, and our physical being as we know it, as we look at it in the mirror. And all these outer components build some sense of ourselves, what we call ego, that we know ourselves in that particular composition, superficial composition, which has its own desires, preferences, likings, dislikings, and so on and so forth. It is composed of many elements which are not ours, actually, which are coming from the universal nature, from dogmas, religious dogmas, scientific dogmas, views of our friends, of our parents, of our family, cultural kind of habits, whatever conventions. Um, Language is another great convention which is determining our views on life. Our preferences in feelings, emotions, and sensations which we learned during our lifetime, and we imitate others. And our physical body, also built from the elements of nature. So all this kind of superficial surface nature is building the sense of ourselves, yeah, but we have a deeper inner nature of our surface mind, which Shubhendu calls subliminal nature of the mind, which goes into the bigger realm, and all our thoughts are arriving from that reservoir, from that origin, you know, from our inner vital. There is a bigger universal vital behind our surface vital, and even inner physical. There is a bigger material body, which we are only part of. And there is subconscious levels, deeper, and which are going into the inconscient, into the involved consciousness where there is no more consciousness. So there's this in between level is universal level of our surface being, behind which there is the self, our proper self, which is formed in our mental, vital, and physical selves, but belongs proper to our unborn self, Atman, of which there is a projection, what we call the soul, Antaratman, the psychic being, that which is within our heart. And this is our true entity, our true self, of which ego is a projection, only a projection, a shadow. It's, I could say this is like the sun, and this is like the Shani, Saturn, a shadow, Chaya of the sun. So, and in between we have the whole system, the whole living stuff of our being. I'm just telling you for the maybe for the first time you see that such a scheme, but it may uh, suggest you many interesting thoughts. If you meditate upon this scheme, you will see many interesting ideas about yourself. All right, I will stop here for today. I took 50 minutes. And I welcome your questions.
Anybody wants to ask any question? There is Chandan Banka. He has written, "What is the meaning of eternal?"
Ethereal.
Ethereal. Ethereal. Yeah.
Yes, ethereal is from ether. Ether is that what Akasha, what we know, yes?
Hmm.
Akasha is that uh, one-dimensional reality. In the Vedas, it is Marichi, those particles of light within the space. Yeah, did you notice that our space is a profound entity, which is very interesting in one particular regard. Wherever you look, you will see in the cosmos, you will see that everywhere we have a particular temperature. Temperature is, we have absolute zero in the universe, yes? And absolute zero is minus 273 degrees of Celsius, very close to us, minus 273. If we come to minus 273, the universe will be frozen. It will disappear because the hydrogen will freeze. And if hydrogen will freeze, all the stars, everything would freeze. There would be no universe anymore. It will be collapsed. It will collapse on the ground of this temperature. So the whole ether is one bubble of energy. And this energy is constantly moving in the universe, in the stars, in the galaxies. New galaxies are born, the stars are dying, and so on and so forth. Planets are born. So constant movement of the universe, of this energy. We can have highest degrees, billions, trillions, quadrillions of degrees, but we cannot have lower than 273. So it's like a bubble of temperature. It's something very similar what they speak in the Vedas, tapas. This tapas was there. The universe is this um, temperature which is being managed. It's an energy. And there is a law of preservation of energy, which is unique. Yeah. Energy moves from form to form, but energy is preserved. Now, if I burn the fire, the heat will go to some other particles and will be taken by other particles' energy and transmitted to other particles, and so on and so forth. Energy travels and it is constantly preserved. It is never exhausted. Only forms are changing. Just think about it. And that is all within the ether. All right. There's more questions I can see.
Okay. Suhani is asking, is the union of Purusha and Prakriti deemed to be good or bad?
Well, neither good nor bad. It's a manifestation of Purusha and Prakriti. So Prakriti is nothing but Purusha's power to manifest himself. Yes, Prakriti is his consciousness power. And that's how Sankhya views it. We didn't come to Sankhya today yet, but next time we will look into Sankhya's system, where the Purusha and Prakriti are both eternal. And when Purusha attends to Prakriti, Prakriti manifests him in terms of faculties. Yeah? So these indriyas are being activated within these Panchamahabhutani. And so we have these forms, material forms. This is the Purusha embodied here. Yeah? She tries to embody the Purusha in full sense. And the moment he withdraws from her, she all her gunas fall into equilibrium. So they disconnect. The sattva, rajas, and tamas become disconnected. And so there is no more manifestation. But the moment he attends to her, and who is she? She is his power. As Mother says, without him, I exist not. She speaks as Prakriti about Purusha. Without him, I exist not. Without me, he is unmanifest. So this is the relation of Purusha and Prakriti. They are both needed. Without both of them, they are one and the same being viewed in a different way. By the way, Mother was very much against this kind of insistence on Purusha and Prakriti, because many people insist on the difference. And she says she doesn't see that difference because Prakriti is nothing but Purusha in manifestation. It is him, it is his power, his being, his consciousness is being manifested in time and space. It is not somebody else doing it for him. It is he who is doing it for himself in this particular way. And it is becoming more and more obvious when we continue on in developing in this journey of the evolution of consciousness. First, we are separated as Purusha and Prakriti. First realization is separation of Purusha from Prakriti. You become independent. You view yourself as unborn self, as Sakshi, viewing the Prakriti as if from outside, from the unborn state of consciousness. And then you notice that Purusha is not totally uninvolved, but he is also Anumanta. He is the one who gives sanctions to Prakriti. She would not do anything here without his sanction. Whatever she does, she always asks for sanction from Purusha. Is it good to do this way? And he says, yes or no. He says, yes, it's good. So she does it. If he says no, she will stop doing it. And then when we continue, we will see that he is not only Anumanta, the Sakshi and then Anumanta, but he is also the one who is Ishvara, and she is his Shakti. So here we arrive at totally new vision that she is his energy, who is manifesting and doing everything because he is there within her. So she becomes totally identified with him. And this is the highest realization which we have to arrive at. I hope it's quite exhaustive answer on Purusha and Prakriti.
About clarity. We have Dr. Gaurav Ashish, he is a faculty professor here. He is asking how to traverse the journey from the surface to the subliminal and vice versa. There could be common thread. Please elucidate. Thanks and regards. Vladimir ji, with that, I have also one question. So, if you
Yes,
allow
please,
me,
please.
like normally in this materialistic world, self remains as an enjoyer. So almost similar kind of question I have. so that how the consciousness help us in to bring that inner uh, out, just remain on the surface level.
Well, that requires that the faculties of consciousness should kind of um, become aware of the inner being and want that inner self in us to fill them. They become like a channel for this inner being to go to reach to the surface. So for that they have to renounce their own claim for self-satisfaction, which is quite difficult. Yes, that's what we say, abolish the ego. How can you abolish the ego if you are ego? So I know only that what I know about myself. I know that I want this and I don't want that. So we are all determined by desire. Our all, how to say, motivations are desire oriented. Without the desire, we don't want to do anything. Why should I do if I don't have the desire? So we are so used to this particular formation and work, how to say, the modality of being motivated by desire, that we don't think that there is something else, that there can be different type of motivation. So this is the very good example how difficult yoga is. Difficult in what sense? And that we have to demotivate our faculties, our seeing, hearing, speaking, thinking, tasting. They will have to look for the deeper light, for the absolute satisfaction, and allow that inner light of that Brahman light within us to reach to the surface. They have to become channels of that spiritual power. They have to become indifferent to their own self-satisfaction, which is quite a task. And the problem here lies in one particular um, kind of difficulty is um, when we try to do it, even if I get a glimpse of inner being and I have that glimpse of, oh, this is so beautiful, I want to keep it. I want that to be always that inner being, that peaceful, luminous, blissful being in all my senses. They are totally satisfied with that presence within them. That being does not stay constantly. That's the problem. So it will come like a lightning or like a flash of light. It will flash once and I will be charged for a week or something. And then it doesn't come. I wait and wait for it to come. I don't do anything. I don't look for self-satisfaction of the senses. I'm calling to it and it doesn't come. And then I'm falling back to my ordinary way of being. Better smaller satisfaction than no satisfaction at all. So within this period, we are, how to say, tested by how sincerely we want the spiritual life to manifest in our everyday affairs. And that is the biggest problem. Many people fail, and it's normal to fail if you have only once the glimpse. But that glimpse, one can never forget. One always wants to return to that spiritual presence within the consciousness, within the faculties. Once experienced, we are always drawn to the spiritual life because there only the senses can be satisfied. This is also a unique thing. We do not know that we cannot really satisfy the senses in the outer senses we are looking by desire. Desire cannot satisfy it. Yeah. Whatever you do, it looks like it is satisfied, but it is not. As Dhammapada of Buddhism would say, that even the rain of golden coins cannot satisfy the desire. It is not possible to satisfy it. It will be again and again hungry because it is not really satisfied by partial achievement. It wants an absolute achievement. An absolute achievement is possible only in this way, that we have to reconnect our faculties to their source, to their universal Purusha, where they came from, to that light, which is the only self-satisfying light. So here we have this problem, the dilemma, and the difficulty of the yoga. So if I look into, is it answering partially to what you're asking, Kiranji?
Yeah, I think yes, it is clear. Gauravji, uh,
Yes, Gaurav is also asking about
yeah,
subliminal and
yeah,
surface and how, yes. If you can also, you raised your hand, can you just talk maybe? It would be easier
yeah.
to,
Manishji, can you please switch on the microphone of Gauravji? Manishji, are you there?
maybe we can do it also.
I'm not host, so I can't do.
We can allow to talk. Well, let me find you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
please.
yeah, allow to talk. Yes, please.
It is there? Good, good. Gauravji, please ask your question to
Or
Vladimir.
you make comments. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. First and foremost, thank you very much, dear Vladimir.
Yes, you're
Every
welcome.
session we get to be wiser, and we look forward for more. Uh, uh, Actually, you elucidated on that, and while you were talking, it suddenly occurred to me that the journey, or maybe this oscillation, uh, which is probably the prarabdha of the Purusha, you know,
Hmm.
is probably to explore the very being,
Hmm.
the way it is, and the way probably the Purusha would want it to be. So, like what you elucidated already, that is what yoga would be, and like whatever little I've read about it, probably I can relate to it now better. So this journey, this traversal, this path would be the path from what we call as a sthula to sukshma. Okay, if I may put it that way. So basically, that is what would be the journey from the surface to the subliminal, and then back to the surface, so that the the others who are like the fellow wayfarers, they also get to relate to this journey, and humanity, that is how I perceive humanity would get to progress.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Nice. Yes, the subliminal level, which is here, inner mind, inner vital, inner physical, is that universal domains of the mind, vital, and physical. We are all composed from the elements of those universal aspects of the mind. Yes, where even in Jyotisha, for example, when you are born in a particular time, that means in that particular space and time when you come, so you enter into this manifestation. You are composed. We are taking all the elements from the outer nature, yes, from the bigger nature, so to say. All our body is composed from the elements of outer nature. We live by food. We are constantly in exchange with outer nature. The same with our feelings, emotions, sensations. We are drawing all these vibrations from these subliminal, bigger, universal, vital. And we draw all our thoughts, they're all traveling from that bigger universal mind. Yes. And not only that, our dogmas, our belief systems, all of them are formed somewhere in those domains, and we actually take them in. It's not really our thing. Mm. So this kind of outer and inner mind, outer and inner vital, it is our fields in which we operate, as it were. On the outer mind and outer vital, these are the surface being with ego as a leader, yeah. But the inner subliminal is this universal domains from which we draw all our resources, and to which we give away whatever we gained in our life. When we leave the body, all that which we formed here on the surface becomes the aspects of that inner universal domain. It goes there as food. It is being decomposed there, or stays in whatever formation it was composed. So, and then it can come back as sanskaras, or the habits, or influence some other beings. They can catch them and become them, and so on and so forth. So we live and share the common reservoir, all of us. But we have something in us which is true, which is evolving, and that is our inner being, innermost psychic being, yes, which operates on these levels of the self which we formed within. That's why we have this composition, beautiful, of the mind, vital and physical. That's why we are so complex. You know? And that this being is evolving, growing in power, and has to come through all these levels to the surface. It has to take a place of the ego here. It has to remove the ego. And that's what Mother calls the psychic awakening, when the psychic being reaches out to the surface and takes charge of our outer mind, outer vital, and outer physical. It leads them. That is that purohitam, yes? Agnimile purohitam, the one put in front. That is the fire which is reaching to the front and leads our journey forward. Then we will have totally different evolution of consciousness.
Uh, Vladimir ji,
Yes.
one more question. I don't know whether students have. Please write your questions, students, if you have some. Otherwise, I'll keep on asking Vladimir ji. It is an opportunity for us, right? So, Vladimir ji, this ego is shadow, or is it identity, or it is self? And if if it is shadow or identity, I mean self and identity, then how the psychic being, can come forth if it is an identity?
Yeah, identity doesn't mean that this is the true identity or the only identity. Yes, of course, ego is our identity in a sense that we identify ourselves with a particular set of habits and emotions and sensations, and we believe that is what we are. That amalgam of things, that kind of, absolutely unclear set of preferences, not even very conscious, unconsciously chosen and selected by chance and by mistake and by preference and by fear and by all kind of things which we are not aware of. And in even our birth, how we are born in a particular family and how we developed our relations with our parents, friends, everything is very, very half conscious. So the selection we made, the preferences we identified with, what we understand by that as ourselves, and deal with it constantly and struggle with it, because truly speaking, it is not who we are. Yeah? It is something what we identified with. So we took the elements as we took the physical elements, the same we took vital elements, we took mental elements from this universal nature and build up some kind of murti, some kind of resemblance of our being, and that is our ego. It is very important to have ego, because ego is something which is holding all our nature in a particular focus and activity. It is evolving, it is developing, it is becoming more and more refined. It becomes more and more flexible. It can do many more things. So ahankara is important. As Sri Aurobindo says, ego was the helper and ego is the bar. this is a very also interesting statement, that ego is a helper, really. But one day, it will become an obstacle, because there is more required. We need more to bring forward from within. And then ego will start obstructing it, will be demanding its own way of being. That individualistic age will become a problem in some way. You can see how people are egoistically nowadays. That's the individualist age. Everybody has a preference, liking, disliking. I want this, I don't want that. And I choose what I want. That's all ego about. It is built on desire, on the preference. And still, it is something which is very important for our self-development, without which we will not be totally individualized and cannot really truly find that connection to the psychic, to the inner true subjective being in us. If we are not totally individualized, if we are a part of this subliminal, God knows what, dogmas, ideas, religions, cultures, whatever, languages, if we are only formed by that, then we are not yet individuals. We do not have our own stand. We do not have our own views, even mistaken, but our own, but we will discover that they are wrong. We can do that. We can connect. That's why Sri Krishna mixed the jatis, yes, and demolished the conventional system, that everyone now in his self can really reach out to me in the heart, because he is seated in the heart, adhyajna. He is within the heart of every man, within the psychic being of every man. There is a Purushottama, the Supreme Lord. Yes. So that has to be discovered. And the process is individualization, and the ego plays a very important role. Yeah. Ego, but not like egoistic, but more like ego sense, like knowing oneself as such, in this form. So Sri Aurobindo makes a distinction between ego and egoism, and this is also important. We need ego. Ego is helping us to act in nature, act in a particular way. Yes, if ego is well refined, well determined, well formed, well educated, it becomes a very good worker, and it is needed for manifestation. But if ego is very loose cannon, wants one day this, other day that, runs only for satisfaction of its desires, then it becomes egoistic, so to say. And that has to be rectified.
Thank you, Vlad.
Yes, you're welcome.
Brought lots of clarity. And students, if you have any questions,
Okay, yeah. If not, then we can stop here for today. It's quite a lot of material to ponder about. And
okay. So I don't see any questions here right now.
yeah.
Okay. I hope I don't know, next time possibly we will allow student to come on the screen, and it will give them you will rather you'll feel perfectly all right with them while interacting. But I'm so thankful, Vladimir ji. Hello.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I'm so thankful, Vladimir ji, that you joined today. And okay, Sonal Shah is saying thanks also. She is permanent person who enjoys all the lectures here.
Mm.
So I'm really thankful that you joined here today, and it is specifically your lectures are meant for students. But being a student of literature, I learned a lot today from you,
Mm.
and it's Indian knowledge is ocean, and it's very difficult to how to start. And if we take your lecture as a starting point, I think we'll lead in a right direction. So I, on behalf of student, I'm thankful to you, as well as on behalf of Auro University. Yes, on behalf of Gauravji also, I'm thankful to
Thank you.
you. And we are waiting for your next lectures. And I request all the students that if you have some question, please, after this talk, ponder over it. And if you have any question, prepare it. And you can post me, I can post it to Vladimirji, as well as you can ask in next session also.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Vladimirji. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you,
Namaste.
everybody, for joining. Thank you.